All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Ugran experiment on a very, very sad day. As you're about to see, we have lost. I love telling you guys good news. Can't get enough of it. We love the days when we have good news. And we're honest about when we have good news and bad news. Some people are in the bad news business. Some people are in the good news business. We're in the news business. And today is a very bad news day. Progressives have lost. Anna's going to explain.
All right, well, there was an unexpected press conference today. Conservative Democratic Senator Joe Manchin held an unexpected press conference today to discuss where he stands on the budget reconciliation bill. Now, Cenk, there was another update to this story later on in the day.
And then progressive leader, Representative Jayapal, came out on television to respond to the press conference. Manchin laid down red lines, and they are terrible red lines. Anna's going to explain that in a second. How did Jayapal respond? Well, that's going to give you your answer as to what is going to happen in these bills. Quick tease, not well. We're going to see how disastrous that response was in a little bit. But first, you got to find out what threats Manchin used so that you know what progressives responded to.
So we have several short clips from Manchin's press conference. I want to start off with the first one where he keeps reiterating that he's been negotiating on good faith.
I've worked in good faith for months with all of my colleagues to find a middle ground on a fiscally, and I repeat that, a fiscally responsible piece of legislation that fixes the flaws of the 2017 Trump tax bill that I thought was weighted far, far too far for the high-end earners and the needs of the American families and children. However, as more of the real details outline the basic framework are released, what I see are shell games, budget gimmicks that make the real cost of the so-called $1.75 trillion bill estimated to be almost twice that amount if the full time is run out, if you extended it permanently, and that we haven't even spoken about.
So he's referring to the budget reconciliation bill, the bill that he received quite a few concessions on. A lot of the important provisions in that bill were stripped out. The bill was pared down in order to appeal to Joe Manchin, and he's making it abundantly clear that he's still not committed to voting in favor of that budget reconciliation bill. Now, he claims that he's negotiating on good faith. Obviously, we do not agree with that. In fact, in that clip, he said that he wanted to reverse the damage that was being done by the Trump-era tax cuts. That is not the case. In fact, he had previously said, this is from the Associated Press on September 13th of 2021, I cannot support $3.5 trillion, Manchin said, citing in particular his opposition to raising the corporate tax rate above 25%, a figure he says will keep the US globally competitive. Now, the corporate tax rate before Trump implemented his tax cuts was 35%. Trump lowered it to 21%. And Manchin was like, I'm not gonna raise the corporate tax rate anywhere above 25%. I'm giving you that context because he's a liar and he's not negotiating on good faith. Cenk.
Yeah, so look guys, this is a shell game that they use because they know there's no real reporters in the country. So one of them says, oh my God, the Trump tax cuts, we don't want those. We want the rates to go back up, but I want that rate to go up, not this one. Then the second senator comes in and goes, oh, I'm against the Trump tax cuts too, but what an unlucky break. I'm the reverse, I don't want that one to go up, I want the other one to go up. And then two more senators come in until they've all vetoed any tax increase at all. So Manchin originally said the corporate tax rate used to be at 35%. They lowered it to 21. Biden said 28. Manchin seemed like he was going to go to 28. Now he's like, nope, only 25. But it doesn't matter because Sinema says I won't even do 25. I'll be at 21. And then Sinema says, how about we do a billionaires tax? I'm not sure, actually, I'm not positive Sinema said that, but certainly Wyden proposed that and it seemed like it was getting momentum. And then Manchin goes, no billionaires tax. So they say no on every single tax on the rich, no on every single tax on corporations. So what you saw there from Joe Manchin is an unmitigated lie. And also, when Democratic leadership tells you they were against the Trump tax cuts, they're lying. They're in charge now, 100% in charge. If they were against the Trump tax cuts, they would reverse them. It's not complicated. They're not going to reverse $1 of it because they're actually in favor of it because they're also rich.
Now, Manchin is adamant in getting a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill in the House that's already passed in the Senate. That is where his priorities are. He wants to pass that corporate handout bill, and he's actually livid about the fact that progressives, in his words, have held that bill hostage. He says it's not going to work. Let's watch.
For the sake of our country, I am urging all of my colleagues in the House to vote and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's bipartisan, 69 votes. We worked on that for many, many months. As I've said before, holding that bill hostage is not going to work to get my support of what you want.
You're not going to get my support for what you want. He's referring to the reconciliation bill, and he's demanding a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. In fact, Manchin is incredibly salty about the fact that progressives, at least for a brief period of time, decided to flex a little bit of their power. I want to go to the next video on that.
The President of the United States has addressed the House Democratic Caucus twice recently to urge action on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which sometimes we refer to as the BIF bill. Last week, the Speaker Pelosi urged the importance of voting and passing the BIF bill before the President took the world stage overseas, and still no action. In my view, this is not how the United States Congress should operate, or in my view, has operated in the past. The political games have to stop. Twice now, the House has balked at the opportunity to send the BIF legislation to the President. As you've heard, there are some House Democrats who say they can't support this infrastructure package until they get my commitment on the reconciliation legislation. It is time to vote on the BIF bill, up or down, and then go home and explain to your constituents the decision you made. And I've always said, if I can't go home and explain it, I can't vote for it, and if I can, I will. I've worked in good faith for 3 months, for the past 3 months, with President Biden, Leader Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, and my colleagues on the reconciliation bill, and I will continue to do so. For the sake of the country, I urge the House to vote and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Holding this bill hostage is not going to work in getting my support for reconciliation bill.
So again, he is not committed to voting in favor of the reconciliation bill. He's demanding a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill immediately. And the question that remains is, will progressives give in to his demands? We're gonna get to that in just a second, but first, Cenk.
Yeah, so understand the hypocrisy of everything that he's saying. Remember, again, there's two bills, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that's the one that's the corporate-backed one. It's got all sorts of goodies for corporations. That's why both corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans voted for it in the Senate. They love it because it gives your money to corporations. They love that. And they're saying, we only want that one passed. And he says, how dare you hold that bill hostage? But wait a minute, you're holding the other one hostage, Build Back Better. That's the one that actually has money for actual Americans. Well, I get to hold it hostage and you don't get to hold it hostage. And then he calls it political games. Well, how about the political games you're playing? You're holding the other bill hostage. And you're saying in this press conference, not only am I not going to vote for it now, I'm not giving you any promises that I'm ever gonna vote for it. And I'm not giving you any promises about what's gonna be in the bill. That's an open-handed slap. And that says to progressives, you're gonna get nothing and you're gonna like it, sign the goddamn bill and do as we tell you, like every single time. The corporate donors will win. We will not raise $1 of taxes on corporations, not one on the rich, and you will not get paid family leave. You will not get lower drug prices. You will not get free community college. You'll not get climate change. You'll get nothing and like it. Now, if I was a progressive leader or Nina Turner was the progressive leader, we'd come out and we'd have a similar message for Joe Manchin. Is that what happened, Anna?
Well, why don't we hear from Pramila Jayapal, who is the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
I'm very happy to say that we are now awaiting negotiations amongst senators on prescription drug pricing and child care and some details on immigration. But the Progressive Caucus, assuming good resolution of those issues from the Senate side, that we will be excited to vote for both bills. We now feel like we have what we need. We are taking the president's word at the fact that he believes he can get 50 votes in the Senate. And I hope that the two senators that we've been waiting on these months, who have come to the table in good faith and negotiated, that they understand that this is a leap of faith. But assuming we get these final negotiations done, we're ready to pass both bills. And I think the caucus feels very good about the fact that we've been able to do what we said from the beginning, which is pass both bills at the same time, get the entirety of the president's agenda to his desk for signature, and ultimately deliver transformative change for people across this country.
So understand that what she just said there was, we're gonna vote on both bills. The House is likely to pass both bills. And that's before we have a reconciliation bill passed and ready to go in the Senate. So she said that she's taking the president's word that he will have the 50 votes necessary in the Senate to pass the reconciliation bill. The pared down, stripped reconciliation bill that does not include many of the provisions that Biden claimed was part of his agenda.
Okay.
But there is no guarantee that there will be a reconciliation bill. Okay. If the House passes the bipartisan bill, which is what all the corporate goons and all the Republicans, and by the way, Manchin wants, again, there's no guarantee that they're gonna get a reconciliation bill, and progressives will have given up all of their leverage.
She said that assuming that they're going to do this, and we're gonna take the president's word. No,
don't take the president's word.
Assuming that Manchin and Sinema are gonna do the right thing. And look, the pared down version already sucks. And Manchin and Sinema are still not happy with it. The original negotiations were supposed to be between these are indisputed facts. You can look them up anywhere you want. They were supposed to be between 1.5 trillion, which is what Manchin and Sinema were saying, and 3.5 trillion, which is what progressives were saying. Now we're at 1.75, and Manchin and Sinema go, no, that's not enough of a surrender. What, we went up 0.25? You guys lost on everything? It's not enough, it's not enough. And by the way, even if you come down to 1.5, we still might not pass it. Are you insane that you're gonna trust Manchin and Sinema? You're gonna what, take the president's word? What, Biden's gonna be tough on Manchin and Sinema? Come on, that's preposterous. So look, I'll be very clear about this, and everybody in Washington can catch all the feelings they like. They say, oh, this is so rude to poor Jayapal, etc. I'm not prejudging, I'm telling you my position and her position. Let's see who's right, okay? So I'm saying if Jayapal is right and they come back with 1.75 trillion, which already sucks, but I'll give it to her, okay? It doesn't even have paid family leave, it's a disaster of a bill. But even that version, okay, the 1.75, it passes. I'll say, oh, you know what, my bad. It turns out you could take Biden at his word, and he wasn't representing his donors, as we told you all along. And Manchin and Sinema were reasonable, and they actually passed some tax increases, etc. We'll say we were wrong, and we'll say Jayapal should remain leader of the House Progressives. If she is wrong, and it turns out they shouldn't have taken Manchin and Sinema's word, they shouldn't have taken Biden and Pelosi's word, well, then there has to be consequences and accountability. So we're not like the toxic left. Accountability just simply means you obviously shouldn't be leader because you were wrong and you got us nothing.
So
or you got us a terrible bill. Is there gonna be accountability? No, my guess is progressives are gonna go, but Cenk, that's not fair, you hurt her feelings, and we care a lot about her feelings. I care about the feelings of the voters. Did you guys forget about the voters? We're not asking for anything other than, did you pass the goddamn bill or didn't you? And so if you didn't, you can, telling me about trust of corporate Democrats is not remotely interesting. There's no way to characterize this as anything but a complete surrender. The original negotiating position was, we will not pass this bill until you pass the reconciliation bill. Now they're saying, sorry, we apologize, we give you everything. Forget our earlier negotiating position. We will pass your bill first and then hope for the best on the second bill. And by the way, that also destroys your leverage. You will have no leverage at all. Now that you gave them what they wanted, now they're gonna say, why would I give you anything in negotiations, you schmucks? Why would I give you anything? You've lost all leverage, we're done for. And now when a progressive leader says something in Congress, the rest of the Democrats and Republicans and media will laugh their ass off. Remember when they drew a red line and then we easily got them to surrender? Their word doesn't mean anything. That's what's gonna happen, it's a guarantee.
I mean, I feel the same way about progressives in Congress right now. It's not just about Jayapal. I mean, Jayapal might be the leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, but does that mean that every progressive within that caucus needs to follow her lead? You still have progressives. You have enough Justice Democrats to block both bills until they get what they want. Are they willing to do it? And you talk about accountability. Who carries out the accountability? I think that's the missing piece of the puzzle, right? We can elect progressives into Congress. Clearly, if they're not fearful of the electorate, or if they're not fearful of the very people who put them in that position of power in the first place, they're not going to carry out what they can carry out with the leverage that they have. This is a perfect example of them literally having the leverage necessary to get important provisions included. They were willing to flex that muscle before. I don't know why they're willing to give it up now.
No, it's the gaslighting, and it's honestly the feelings. The feelings of Jayapal will be heard. The feelings of Pelosi will be heard. We will have broken etiquette, the most important thing in Washington. Etiquette, okay? No. And I want to be super clear. There's a toxic left that has ruined everything by going nuclear on even the smallest little issues. So it has given progressive legislators an out, going, oh, anyone who criticizes us is a lunatic. So that's okay. We're the furthest left that anybody can go. We're the hardest, toughest negotiators that anybody could do.
They didn't win anything. They haven't accomplished a damn thing.
So we're telling you, as the show that has by far the biggest following in progressive media, by far. It's not to brag, it's to tell you there's a reason why 5 million people said, hey, we like those guys. Those are the guys that speak for us. If we were saying things that weren't true, that weren't progressive, they wouldn't follow us. Overall for the network, it's over 20 million. When are you gonna get it through your head? The base does not like surrender. This is surrender, it is obvious. Now later, I will tell you guys, because it's true, that I will tell you, hey, listen, we gotta primary corporate Democrats. And a lot of you will not listen to me. Why? Because you'll say, what difference does it make? Anna's already there.
I'm already there.
What difference does it make, you're gonna say? We elected the people who we thought were the most progressive. They were clean and uncorrupted, and they gave up anyway. And I'm gonna have an incredibly hard time getting you to give money even to an awesome progressive, or to volunteer for an awesome progressive. Because whenever we send progressives to DC, they go in there and they listen to the stupid etiquette. We're not, when we say fearful, we just mean of the voters. We're not crazy right wingers. We're not crazy toxic left. We just mean, for God's sake, if you don't listen to your own voters, then there's no accountability for you. So I don't give a damn about anybody's feelings. So I'm telling you right now, you guys give up like this, you all are accountable too. Anna's right. You guys made Jayapal the leader. We haven't voted yet. You could vote no. You could vote no. And if you say, hey, Cenk, I am now offended, are you saying that I'm not making the right decision?
Correct.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And if you want to be offended, that's on you, brothers and sisters, okay? But we're telling you the reality. We've got millions of people who constantly send in comments. They're the progressive base. They're to the left of us saying, push them harder, push them harder. Jesus Christ, are we ever gonna get a win? Are we ever gonna get a win? And the answer is no. I'm at a point where I'm nearly retracting all of the excitement that I had for any of these electoral victories. How am I gonna tell people with a straight face, hey, they can make a difference? No, they're gonna surrender, and then they're gonna say they're surprised later that Biden did not keep his word. Manchin and Sinema did not keep their word. And what did we tell you? Anna and I told you, and no one else in progressive media believed this either. We said they're never gonna do a billionaire's tax. Other people are reporting, oh, they're gonna do it. My ass, they're gonna do it. Don't you know anything about American politics? The rich control everything. Why they give campaign contributions? Those are bribes. God, they've learned nothing. I'm gonna get to that last part that's so important in a second. And then still in the bill though was the corporate minimum tax. That's a good tax. At least corporations have to pay 15%. And we said, everybody says this in the final deal, but the only people skeptical were Anna and I. We said, I don't think they're gonna do it because they never raise taxes, not even $1 on corporations. And what happened? Manchin checked with his donors over the weekend.
Yep.
He comes out on Monday and he says, oh, I'm willing to vote no on everything. If you're gonna raise taxes $1 on my beloved corporations and they're my beloved donors, then I vote no on everything. We told you. I'm sick of being right. I'm sick of it. Can anyone in Washington prove us wrong? It's all the money, you idiots. It's all the money. if you don't take the money out of politics first, you're gonna get surprised every time. Oh my God, the donors won again. I'm so surprised. Let's try this first, let's try that first. No, get the goddamn money out first. Jesus Christ, you guys have no sense at all. And when we push for Wolfpack and we push for amendments to get, oh, not yet, not yet, not yet. When? Finally, look at the poor planning. Look at the horrific planning. We also told you, hey, guys, this is a big build, the Build Back Better bill, the reconciliation bill. It's gonna take a long time to craft. How are you gonna get both of them at the same time? You gotta go earlier. You gotta go earlier. You're gonna run out of time, and then you're gonna use time to put pressure on you. Remember how we told you they were gonna run out the clock and then say you've gotta vote for it? That's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. So, and now progressives will pretend to be surprised. So, good luck, brothers and sisters, but there's not gonna be any love out here for you guys. And so, but hey, enjoy the love you'll get in Washington.
All right, we're gonna take a break and we'll show you the difference between the way we share the news with you versus the way Political Playbook shares the news with you. Some Manchin whitewashing when we return.
All right, back on TYT. Aku's Taser says Manchin is so freaking full of himself. I suppose I don't blame his corrupt ass for getting away with everything he possibly can. Well, if everybody in Washington lets you get away with everything and you're not even president but nearly king at this point, yeah, of course you're gonna get full of yourself. The only way that he stops being full of himself is someone checks his ass and says, hey, you know what? No, by the way, let's be honest. In the Senate, you only need one vote. That's not hard math. It's not like, oh, well, if we cobble together Wyden and Warren and Sherrod Brown and Bernie, and no, you only need one vote. So Bernie can just come out and go, no, and this thing's over. Okay, now we go back to the table and either we'll get nothing or you'll have a real negotiation. Actually, it's probably too late in the Senate. So, good luck. That was a great negotiation, way to plan it out. No more trigonometry says when you have to keep reiterating that you're operating in good faith, chances are that you haven't been operating in good faith. More from our members. K-Dragon Battling for Truth and Justice says, tomorrow I will be on my first Wolfpack Washington meeting for getting money out of politics. Thank you, that's exactly right. Wolf-pack.com. Wolf-pack.com/go, wolf-pack.com/join. If you don't join Wolfpack, everything else is horse crap. It's all games, it's all theater. They're gonna lose till the end of time, okay? Irene says, these moderates are obviously certain of their power and they are flaunting it. It is so disturbing. Well, I wish progressive legislators would be as disturbed as we all are. Time Spiral says, Manchin and Sinema are doing the exact same tactics as the Republicans have been doing to Obama since 2008, and the Democrats are still falling for it. Shake my head. Yeah. Whatever, Obama's another corporatist. He didn't fall for it. He agrees with Republicans. He wanted tax cuts for the rich. He wanted to make them permanent. He wanted to deregulate them. He didn't want any real reform. Everybody in Washington, cry. Go ahead and cry. We don't care. Oh, you can't say that about Obama. We've been kissing his ass for all this time. You're not allowed to not kiss his ass. I am allowed, I just said it. Go cry further. Cherry Norris just joined, so did Rashawn Albany. You guys make this show possible. Thank you, hit that join button below the YouTube video and they're gonna hear our voices loud as possible. And Bad Catholic Hall Pass Dragon wrote in a super chat, congrats Jayapal, you become a corporate Democrat without the money while simultaneously killing the progressive movement in the Democratic Party. If progressives don't kill the bipartisan bill, they are done and we are finished as a country. And Tyler Hackner says, glad Cenk knows that a lot of us are to the left of the hosts. So remember, it's not any of our decisions. They make the decisions. And if they say they don't want critique for their decisions, well, that is what corporate Democrats do, no deal. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. All right, more news. Unfortunately, more, well, I don't want to say rage, but justified anger towards Washington as we proceed.
Well, why don't we now turn to reporters out of Washington? CNN recently had a Politico playbook co-author on by the name of Rachel Bade to explain why conservative Democrats like Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are voting against the budget reconciliation bill, or at least serving as an obstacle to its passage. Now, this is the exact type of lazy and inaccurate analysis you can expect from DC reporters. Get a load of this inaccurate conventional wisdom.
Well, there's also a divide amongst Democrats about what will it take to be successful in 2022. You have progressives who say, look, we campaigned on things like, free childcare, universal pre-K, free college. If we don't deliver on these, the base isn't going to show up. But then you have moderates who are in these swing districts who are vulnerable and say, look, if we pass a huge package like that, then I'm definitely going to lose my seat. And so there's just a fundamental disagreement in a very diverse party about what it takes, what they should pass to protect themselves in 2022.
So the conventional wisdom is that if it's a Democrat who's running for re-election in a purple state, he or she needs to be really careful when it comes to funding social safety net programs, and the budget reconciliation bill is the example that she's specifically talking about here. But why don't we take a look at what the data indicates? Because while people will have you believe, especially the media, corporate media would have you believe that there's just this massive divide among Democrats and Republicans, in reality, on bread and butter issues, there's a lot of agreement. So let's look at West Virginia first, then we'll look at Arizona. In West Virginia, if you look at the number of voters who support the Build Back Better plan, that's the budget reconciliation bill, there's actually widespread support. So when it comes to West Virginia voters overall, there's 68% who do support the bill. Among Democrats, of course, the number is much higher, 90%. Among independents, 64%. And wow, would you look at that? Even among Republicans, 56% support Biden's Build Back Better plan. I have more data that backs this up, including support for specific provisions in the bill. But Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so when you look at the policy provisions that Anna's gonna read for you guys in a second, you see that it's actually stronger than what even the overall numbers indicate. Because when you say it's Biden's plan, a bunch of Republicans just out of gut instinct say, no, I don't want it, right? But when you break down the specific proposals, they're like, oh my God, I love it. I definitely want it, right? So, but here's the most important thing here. There they are on CNN. You got a Politico reporter, this is epicenter of mainstream media. And they're telling you, well, progressives say that this doesn't play well in their districts, but the moderates say they're definitely gonna lose because this size of this package would not be popular in their states. But wait a minute, don't you have an obligation to check the polls before you declare that it is unpopular in their states? We showed you in West Virginia, we'll show you in Arizona too. They are wrong. Look, I don't know if they're wrong because they don't know politics. That's totally possible that they're lazy and they just never looked at a poll. They have no idea what the people of West Virginia or Arizona think, or they're lying to you on purpose. But neither one of those scenarios is good. But these are incredibly popular bills and provisions in West Virginia. And does it never occur to you that, hey, maybe it's actually the donors, and since they got the money, they're voting no based on that instead of their honest assessment of where their voters are in West Virginia, which you didn't check and took their word on instead of being an actual journalist?
All right, so let's look at individual provisions. And again, we're focusing on West Virginia. We'll look at Arizona in just a moment. So everything seems to be incredibly popular among West Virginia voters, including investments in long-term care. 86% of West Virginia voters are in favor of that. When it comes to expanding Medicare coverage, 82% of voters in West Virginia support that. Same with child care investments. You have 73% of voters in favor. When it comes to extended tax credits for families, 70% are in favor. Paid family and medical leave, 69% of West Virginia voters are in favor of that. Universal pre-K, 67% of West Virginia voters are in favor. Extended Affordable Care Act subsidies, 65% are in favor. And then when it comes to clean energy investments, a little lower, but still the majority of voters in West Virginia at 60% are in favor.
I'm just gonna give you the quickest little context there. 60% is a golden number in politics. You'd be so lucky to get 60% of the public on your side on any issue. The least popular provision in the bill is at 60%. And that's the one that's about clean energy, the one they tell you on television all the time that the people of West Virginia do not want. They only want dirty coal, they don't want clean energy. We just showed you, no, that's not remotely true. 60% of the people in West Virginia do want that investment. So it is an indisputable fact that Manchin's lying to you. The question is, are CNN and Politico lying to you on purpose, or are they the world's worst journalists?
So when it comes to pay-fors, right? Tax increases famously happen to be like the most sticky issue for Democrats running for re-election in purple districts. But if you look at how West Virginians feel in regard to the pay-fors that were initially included in the reconciliation bill, seems like they were incredibly popular. They want tax hikes on the rich. In fact, they want to limit deductions for wealthy business owners. 74% of West Virginians want that. 72% of West Virginians are in favor of higher income taxes for the wealthy. 69% of them are in favor of increased capital gains tax for the wealthy. 68% are in favor of IRS enforcement just to ensure that wealthy people are not dodging their taxes or evading their taxes. And 65% of West Virginians are in favor of increased corporate tax rates. And when you look at Arizona, you see similar support, which is why, again, what you hear from that political reporter in that CNN interview is complete and utter nonsense. So let's take a look at Arizona. Voters overwhelmingly do support Biden's Build Back Better agenda. And I'm talking about the Build Back Better agenda before it was stripped down as a result of Manchin and Sinema's opposition. So 65% of likely Arizona voters are in favor of it. Among Democrats, that number jumps up to 95%. Among independents, 58%. And even among Republicans, 43% are in favor of the Build Back Better agenda. You look at specific provisions, and again, very similar to what we experienced in West Virginia. 85% of people in Arizona do want to expand Medicare coverage. 85% want an investment in long-term care. 71% want child care investments. 69% want clean energy investments. 68% extend tax cuts for families. 67% paid family and medical leave in favor of. 66% are in favor of universal pre-K, and 64% are in favor of extended Affordable Care Act subsidies. And the pay-fors, I mean, just take a look at this chart. Again, you see overwhelming support for tax increases at the very top. 75% of people in Arizona want higher income taxes for the wealthy. The lowest number you see here is 66%, which is still incredibly high. 66% of people in Arizona want increased corporate tax rates.
Okay, so both in West Virginia and in Arizona, you have a nearly identical number on increasing the corporate tax rate. It's near the bottom of the priorities. Everything else is even higher, okay? But you just take that minimum number. It's 65 and 66, so two-thirds of the voters in a very red state like West Virginia, and in a purple state like Arizona say, no, we definitely want higher tax on the rich, and we definitely definitely want higher taxes on corporations. Manchin comes out and says, and Sinema, they both say, oh no, in our states, since they're red and purple, nobody wants higher taxes on the rich or on corporations. And every reporter like an idiot in a best case scenario. Because the other scenario is they're lying to you on purpose and they're not manufacturing news, they're manufacturing consent. And they're the lowest workers in the corporate rule totem pole, which is really sad and pathetic that you spent your life doing marketing for corporations when you thought you were a journalist. But let's assume they don't have bad intent. Well, then they don't know anything about their own jobs. They don't know anything about the news. They don't know anything about what the people in West Virginia or Arizona want. And worse yet, like fools, they go talk to senators, politicians, and they go, oh, what do the people of your state want? Oh, they want lower taxes on the wealthy? They want lower taxes on big business? They love big business and they don't want anything for themselves. Childcare, no, they don't want that. Paid family leave, no. Medicare expansion, dental and vision, they don't want teeth. Who needs teeth? To see things when they're older? They don't need any of that. No, we'll write it down and we'll say it on television. Why? To trick the rest of the voters into thinking that you're a good person and you're acting honorably, and that we don't live under corporate rule, and that you didn't do all of this because of the bribes you received from those industries. Well, then you're not in news. You're not in news, and they all say that. You've seen them say that 1,000 times on television. Did you know these numbers? Well, part of the reason some of you don't know the numbers is because all the mainstream media are liars, and they don't tell you. They know these numbers. And New York Times will say, I have plausible deniability. I once printed these numbers on page 827 in a tiny little paragraph, and I never came back to it. But in every other article, I said that the people of West Virginia and Arizona don't want this bill, when they definitely want it. They don't want to tax the rich when they definitely want to tax the rich. Look, the mainstream media, they're part of corporate rule. So when you see crap like that on air, don't believe what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, they're just stenographers. They'll get interviews with these senators or members of the House, and they'll just regurgitate what they're told. But they never look at the actual influences behind the scenes. They never look at the personal investments of these members of Congress. They never look at the conflicts of interest. They just regurgitate what people in positions of power say. That's all they do. And that's not journalism. Journalism means that you actually go out there and you, first of all, assume that people in positions of power are lying to you. That should be number one. Maybe people might think that's a little pessimistic, but that's what politicians do. That's what people in positions of power do. They want to maintain their power. They will do anything and everything necessary to do so. So assume they're lying to you and investigate what their claims are, but they don't do that. They just regurgitate what these lawmakers say, instead of actually looking at the money that influences them, the personal financial investments that motivate them, and other, narcissistic, self-interested factors that lead to the decisions that they make. That's really what's going on.
One last thing, guys, it's not like these reporters are just angelic people who just naturally support everyone and believe everyone and trust them. They go, well, if you're saying something, I'm gonna write it down like it's true. No, if you're an outsider, they say you're not credible. By the way, all voters by definition are outsiders, okay? So you guys are not credible. If you say something, we're not gonna take it seriously. No way, and we'll look at it we'll write it skeptically, etc. But if someone in power, like a senator says it, well then I just write it down. I have no skepticism. No, journalists are supposed to do the exact opposite. You're supposed to look at people in power with skepticism. They're gonna want to maintain their power. The people who are giving money to politicians are likely to give money because they want to make more money. They want to maintain their wealth. That's obvious to any rational human being. That would be the very first step of journalism. David Sirota on CNN over the weekend, and give credit to Brian Stelter for having him on Reliable Sources. When Stelter asked him, what's the one thing that you think the mainstream press is doing wrong? Sirota had an excellent answer. He said, you're not following the money. You never talk about the corporate contributions. And Brian's face in the beginning was like this. Like he didn't expect that answer. What are you guys doing? What are you doing? Do journalism or just clean up and go home. Not challenging the powerful, instead challenging the powerless. It's disgusting. It's the exact opposite of what real reporters are supposed to do.
All right, when we come back, Chris Wallace of all people shows you what a good line of questioning looks like as he grills Republican Senator Rick Scott over his support for fiscally irresponsible moves. We've got that story and more when we return.
All right, let me start with YouTube Super Chat because there's some interesting developments here. First, thank you to the members that just joined, Mad Max and Ryan Dolan. You guys make this show possible and change possible. All right, Tyler Hagner wrote in, progressives must hold the line and vote no, but I'm not confident. Thank you for being a strong voice in favor of the American people. Mr. Pink said, if the progressives cave, we should primary them with progressives that will fight. It will be easy to defeat them if they're really that weak. My God, guys, no. We just don't have enough resources on our side to go and now primary the people that we supported in the first place. It's an endless cycle. No, you got to go after corporate Democrats. Going after progressives will make us even weaker. But the problem is progressives invite this when they don't do anything they said they were going to do. So our hands are bound, but I think generally it's a terrible idea. I can explain more as we go along why I think it's a terrible idea. Now, Progressive Canuck, AKA Maple Syrup Dragon wrote in, all progressives need to get us fired up as jank, and we need to all unite across North America. Until we do, we won't just get what we want, but the things we need before a major turn for humanity is irreversible. Thank you, TYT and family. This is an important development. Jordan Smith wrote in saying, Representative Jimmy Gomez just tweeted that he won't vote for bipartisan infrastructure bill unless BBB passes the Senate first. Of all people, Representative Jimmy Gomez. Okay, well, that's one. All you need is three.
Is he being a bad boy? Is he being uncivil?
I guarantee you right now, we should look, honestly, whoever, Jimmy Gomez is not a giant national figure to say the least, okay?
He's about to be.
Yes, but whoever says no becomes a hero instantly, okay? And now I have Jimmy Gomez as the #1 ranked progressive in Congress, okay? So your votes are the only thing that matters. Your tweets are irrelevant, let's be honest.
Yep.
Okay, so if all of you tweet, oh no, this is bad, but we'll vote yes, that's worthless. If Jimmy Gomez doesn't tweet anything except I'm voting no, then he's the #1 progressive. So what are you guys doing? What are you doing? It's honestly, it's put up or shut up time. Can we find two more to have the courage of Jimmy Gomez? Okay, we got to get him on the show. We'll look into him. Honestly, I barely know about him.
Same.
Okay, but somebody was like, apparently like, I just can't stomach this.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Eric wrote, and appreciate the fire tonight. Cenk and Anna, negotiations should have stopped at $3.5 trillion. Then Justice Democrats push for a vote, make Manchinima vote no, and be the bad guys. But of course, honestly, that's the other problem with our guys. They couldn't do strategy if their life depended on it. Because they're not bad faith actors. I'm positive they're not bad faith actors. They're not throwing the game. I know it for a fact, okay? But that does mean they're terrible at strategy, just awful. Maria Rubino said, remember when they were going to raise the minimum wage separately from the big corporate coronavirus bill? They never did. Progressives need to say no to the bipartisan bill. This is BS. We told you they were never going to bring back the minimum wage, and we were right again, unfortunately. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We've got more news.
Rick Scott, a conservative senator from Florida, was on Fox News where he was grilled by Chris Wallace over his decision to support policies that have not been fiscally responsible. Now, this conversation had to do with Rick Scott's refusal to vote in favor of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, even though the bipartisan infrastructure bill is in fact a massive corporate handout. But nonetheless, Wallace wanted to know, why is it that Rick Scott is not in favor of voting for this? Let's watch.
You also voted against money in the infrastructure bill to help your home state of Florida deal with extreme weather, which you have plenty of in Florida. Why'd you oppose the infrastructure bill when 19 Republican senators supported it?
Chris, I believe in spending money on real infrastructure, roads, bridges,
but that's what this bill
has
in it, sir.
I spent $85 billion in my 8 years as governor. Right? Let's look at the bill that passed the Senate. It's not paid for. I paid for my infrastructure. I actually paid down debt. I balanced the budget. This bill, they said it was going to be paid for. It wasn't paid for. This bill said it was infrastructure. Less than half of that bill was roads, bridges, airports, and seaports. You put a bill in front of me that's going to be roads, bridges, airports, and seaports paid for. I'm very interested in doing something like that. But I am not going to bankrupt this country. This country has almost $30 trillion worth of debt. That bill by itself was $250 billion of debt. This has got to end.
So the second video that we're gonna get to is the good one, okay? And I think it really showcases what Chris Wallace, even though he is a conservative, is good at. He asks the right questions. But before we get to that, I do have an important question for you, Cenk, because I wanna make sure I'm correct in noting that Rick Scott is so fiscally responsible that he engaged in Medicare fraud, right?
Yeah, it was actually the largest Medicare fraud in American history.
That's right, yeah. Interesting.
So,
yeah. So bankrupting the country seems to be really something that he's an expert at.
His company that he was CEO of was held criminally liable for robbing the American taxpayers. As CEO, he said, I had no idea that we did the largest robbery of American taxpayers in history. Really? Then you're the most incompetent CEO that has ever existed. And this loathsome guy won 3 major elections against Democrats because Democrats are losers. Chris Wallace challenges Rick Scott better than any Democrat did, and he's on Fox News. But I can't help but say one quick thing about a lie he just told you. He said this would add $2 trillion to the debt. That's not true. It's all paid for, and it was paid for by raising corporate taxes, among other things. And Rick Scott is the one that said, no, don't pay for it. Don't pay for it. No, I don't want you raising taxes on corporations. Those are my donors. So he's a total and utter liar. And of course, the Trump tax cuts that he voted for or that he supports now, not paid for at all.
Of course
actually added to the debt. They're unbelievable liars. I give tons of credit to Chris Wallace for being a rare journalist on television, and he's on Fox News. What's your excuse if you're on CNN or MSNBC?
Well, in fact, Cenk, in his follow-up questioning, he did reference the Trump-era tax cuts, which Rick Scott did support. So let's watch.
You talk about living within your means, you talk about the debt, you talk about deficits. The Trump tax cuts, which were passed in 2017, the year before you were elected to the Senate, is estimated by the Congressional Budget Office that it is going to increase the deficit by over $2 trillion over 11 years. So should the Trump tax cuts be repealed?
My experience is I cut taxes and fees 100 times, over $10 billion, and I actually balanced a budget and paid off 1/3 of the state debt. You can do both.
When Donald Trump was president, you had this tax cut, which added $2 trillion to the deficit, according to the CBO, and you didn't have the commensurate spending cuts. So the question is, if you're not going to have the spending cuts, should you repeal the tax cuts if the debt and deficit are so vital?
Well, first off, I am not raising anybody's taxes. I want lower taxes.
So Chris Wallace keeps asking, all right, well, I mean, you say you're in favor of being fiscally responsible. So, and you're worried about the debt and the deficit and all that. So do you want to repeal the Trump era tax cuts? And he just kept saying, I'm in favor of tax cuts. That's it. I'm in favor of tax cuts, period. So that whole fiscal responsibility line, whether you're talking to a Republican or a corporate Democrat, it is a lie. It is a lie. They are not fiscally responsible. They don't care about fiscal responsibility because whenever it comes to increasing taxes on their donors, or let's keep it real, a lot of them are wealthy, on themselves, they're unwilling to do it. They're just unwilling to do it.
So the points that Chris Wallace is making is actually really elementary. Everyone in politics knows that the Trump tax cuts were not paid for and did put $2 trillion onto the deficit, right? And everyone knows that this Build Back Better bill attempted to pay for the $2 trillion. And so, but the reason why Chris Wallace looks like a hero for saying the obvious is because he's the exception that proves the rule. The rest of the media never tells you the truth. They all know it, but they just never share it with you. They just let politicians come on their shows, lie through their teeth. If he was on Meet the Press on NBC, Rick Scott would have gotten away with every one of those lies. There's no way Chuck Todd would have challenged them. So the rest of the media goes along with corporate politicians in perpetuating lies to you guys, that whenever the money goes to you guys, the voters, are not paid for even when it is, right? When the money goes to the wealthy and to corporations, oh, you don't need to pay for it. The deficit's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No. They never even talk about it. God, if they're not corrupt, the people on television, with a couple of exceptions like Chris Wallace, are the worst journalists in America.
You know, and I think what's interesting about Chris Wallace is how he demonstrates that regardless of what his own political views are, I mean, we very likely disagree with him on most political issues. He's a conservative. But he shows that even being like upfront and honest about what your personal political views are, it doesn't stop you from being a decent reporter or journalist. You just have to ask the right questions and ask follow-up questions. You gotta be willing to grill people in positions of power. And he's shown us on multiple occasions that he's willing to do it. And it's important for him to do it, especially considering he's on Fox News. Does any other reporter or anchor on Fox News share that perspective or ask that line of questioning?
But honestly, other than Mehdi Hassan, does any other person in any way associated with cable news ever ask questions like that?
Not really, no.
Of corrupt corporate politicians? The answer is no, they never do.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to some other news because there are some federal lawsuits I wanted to tell you guys about pertaining to the election. And no, it's not about the election being stolen from Trump. So, cops in Texas refused to help Biden aides as they were pleading for help while Trump supporters were swarming them on the highway and essentially putting their lives in danger. Now, this has to do with campaign stops that a Biden bus was doing in Texas. As they were on the highway in late October, they were swarmed by Trump supporters in vehicles who were trying to drive them off the road. There was a minor collision as a result. And so the Biden aides were calling 911, begging for help. And now, thanks to a federal lawsuit against the police department and also the Trump supporters, we're learning what the cops were saying, what the conversations were like between the 911 dispatcher and the very police that they were asking for help from. So in one transcribed recording, Matthew Dainzer, a San Marcos police corporal on duty the day of the incident, refused to provide an escort when recommended by another jurisdiction. No, we're not going to do it, he told a 911 dispatcher, according to an amended filing for this lawsuit. He also said, we will close patrol, but we're not going to escort a bus. The amended filing also states that in those audio recordings, law enforcement officers privately laughed and joked about the victims and their distress. He quipped that the Biden bus should, quote, drive defensively and it'll be great, end quote. So he's not the only bad cop in this story. There are other police within the San Marcos Police Department who are named in this lawsuit. San Marcos Assistant Police Chief Brandon Winkerwerder also did not order an escort or assistance, the complaint alleges. Instead, he told officers to close patrol the area near the university. Also, an unidentified person referred to the Democrats as a derogatory slang term for someone who is mentally disabled in a group text among San Marcos officers, including Brandon Winkerwerder.
All right, I'm gonna read you guys graphic A to show you how dangerous this is. Okay, so it wasn't like, hey, they're overly worried, what's the big deal? You know, they're driving 25 in a tiny little road. There's nobody in actual danger, and there's a couple of Trump guys next to him. So what, right? No, they were in actual danger. Well, number one, you saw the video, and you see the trucks swerving, etc. Right? The pickup trucks, and they're clear. And then they get in front of them. When they get in front of them, well, then they can slam on the brakes at any time. It gets super dangerous. But I'm going to read you here from HuffPost. In one collision, a Biden campaign car was videotaped being forced out of a lane by a pro-Trump trucker as surrounding vehicles were traveling some 70 miles per hour. A man who identified himself as the driver in that crash boasted about slamming that effort on Facebook. So the cops know how incredibly dangerous it is, and they just say, we're not gonna do our job because you guys are liberals and we're right-wing nuts, and so we only protect right-wingers. We don't protect any of the other citizens. In fact, we enjoy you being targeted and assaulted and intimidated and terrorized. We enjoy that. Well, every cop involved should obviously be fired because they told you they don't want to protect all the citizens. If they're not fired, which almost certainly they won't, that tells you, well, in San Marcos, if you're not a right winger, be really, really careful. The cops sympathize with terrorists.
In other words, if you happen to be someone living in this area who has political views that are different from these cops from this police department, well, you're gonna have to pay. Your tax money is gonna help pay for the salaries for these people, but they're not gonna protect you. And look, this isn't just a problem in San Marcos. This is a problem throughout the country. What do you do when police openly, transparently say that they will not enforce the law, right? We've seen that happen in regard to vaccine mandates. We've seen that happen, I mean, in so many different contexts, not just in regard to Biden staffers who need help. But you have cops saying, no, I'm not gonna enforce this law because I disagree with it, and there are no consequences that come along with that. They just say it knowing that there won't be any consequences, and that leads to just a complete breakdown in society. Because you don't have law enforcement. 100%. You don't have people who are protecting or serving. You have people who get to decide. They're the judge, jury, and in many cases, the executioner. That is a problem. Society can't function under that kind of system. And the real question is, I mean, you have Democrats in power right now, right? What is the Department of Justice doing to investigate these cases? Nothing, right? We have a special panel looking into what happened on January 6th, and all they're focusing on is, oh, well, what did Trump do? And what kind of conversation did Mark Meadows have? And look, that stuff is important, but there is obviously an issue with law enforcement in America. But they're not really looking into that, are they?
It happens all across the country. In New York, the cops kept saying that they're not gonna do their jobs. Oh my God, if we can't beat up black people and stop and frisk and do all this stuff, well then we're gonna they would basically, they stopped arresting people for a while, these de facto movements. Look, if you're a Democratic mayor of a large city and the cops say that they won't do their job, it is super simple. You fire them, grow a pair. Grow a pair. Did we elect you or didn't we? Fire them, replace them with other cops who actually are willing to do the job that they have. And they'll say, oh, well, their union is gonna sue us. Well, great, I'll see you in court. We got lawyers. And if you're in the city of New York, you're in any of these cities, be willing to pay that bill. Okay, we'll go through the whole litigation and you'll come and say, oh, no. As a cop, I don't have to do my job. Okay, go ahead, make that case. I don't care, but get him out. to get them out. It's like the Klan is the cops. And we're not gonna stand for it, guys. And don't let them hide under this stupid idea of, oh yeah, we're just protecting freedom. Remember how they had the Trump parade with the boats? They didn't interfere with any other boats. They made these huge waves, which then sunk a couple of their own boats. But well, we don't care. Have all the boat parades you want, have all the truck parades you want. No one cares. You think we care about micromanaging your life? Hey, right-winger idiots, we don't care about you at all. Other than actually we want to help you. We want to give you better health care, better wages, etc. But you can do all your protests that you want. We don't care. But when you run people off the road, that actually endangers our lives. And that is when the cops need to do something. And if they don't, they're saying, no, you live in a right-wing terror state and we will not protect you. Democrats, when you're in charge, if you don't take action, just not to oppress right-wingers. Nobody wants to, that's insane. If you start oppressing based on political opinions, the left wing is gonna get oppressed the most. I don't want that. I just want you to protect the citizens, the bare minimum.
Can we also just note that the right wing in America keeps claiming that they're the ones who get censored by the left, that they're the ones who have to deal with the intolerant left who don't allow them to engage in their freedom of expression and their political activity as a result of how intolerant they are, that they're constantly censored. Really, I haven't seen the left try to drive campaign buses off the road violently. I haven't seen left-wing police refuse to help right-wingers in their moment of need, right? The Biden campaign canceled 3 different political events, 3 different political stops, or campaign stops, I should say, in Texas as a result of this incident, right? But I mean, all of the individuals out there who have made careers out of pretending like they've been somehow discriminated against because of their political views, they're not upset about this. They're not raising concern about this at all. This isn't a problem at all.
And by the way, politically motivated conspiracies to disrupt a campaign or intimidate its supporters is a violation of the law. Do you know which law it violates? The Ku Klux Klan Act. And were they intimidated? Absolutely. They were driven off the road. Did they cancel campaign events because they were worried their lives were in danger? Yes, absolutely. They violated the KKK Act, and the cops still did nothing because they empathize with the people doing the intimidating. They empathize with the people who are being violent on their watch. There is no rule of law when you have a situation like this. If the Republicans win again, guys, at the national level, good night, Irene. They activate all their vigilantes, the cops stand by, the Democrats are the weakest party in the history of America. They're gonna steamroll us. Right now, poll out, we're gonna talk about it later in the show, 30% of Republicans say it's time for violence. And the cops aren't gonna stop them. And now Democrats are scared of their own shadow, they don't stop them.
No, Cenk,
and when
don't
the Republicans
worry.
get in charge, they're gonna give them a green light.
Don't worry, corporate Democrats are doing a real good job in ensuring that everything you just outlined will in fact happen.
I'm telling you,
complete failures. That's what corporate Democrats are.
Right now, I got it at 50% chance that we lose democracy, period, if a Republican wins another national presidential election. They're gonna run roughshod and they're gonna intimidate the hell out of everybody. We got another story later in the show. Local school boards, they're all resigning because they're getting death threats nonstop. That's terrorism. It's like putting a burning cross on their lawn. And what are the cops doing about it? Generally speaking, anywhere from nothing to not much.
All right, that does it for our first hour. When we come back, we'll give you that story about a woman going on an insane anti-Semitic rant during a school board meeting. But what's particularly interesting about that story is the organizing that's taking place behind that incident. We've got that story and more when we return.
Hi, my name is Aaron Wysocki, and I'm the Director of Content Distribution for the Young Turks. And I'm excited to find out how you discovered TYT. I'm gonna start with Nasty Habits. They said, my brother turned me onto it. He's been a longtime viewer and Wolfpack volunteer. I'm a boomer veteran of the 60s demonstrations against the Vietnam War and for civil rights. My politics have not changed due to my advancing years. If anything, I've moved further to the left, as have most of my friends. Thanks for watching Nasty Habits. Derek G said, I found it by originally searching for Bernie, but it took a while soul searching for me to realize I was actually a progressive. I actually just joined both TYT and the DSA. I'm on disability and recognize that we need safety nets in this world because anything can mess you up and knock you to the ground. And not to mention corporations don't want to do anything but make a profit for themselves. I'm a computer guy. Before I got disabled, I ran a small computer repair business. When I couldn't find a job, I also worked tech support for a major internet provider at one point. Thanks for watching, Derek G.
Cameron M. from the TYT community says, our targeted advertisement during the Sanders 2015 primary season. It was the first news show that I watched and did not make me feel like I'd rather be pulling out my own teeth. I get distressed and anxious from propaganda. Another one from Christopher M. from the TYT community says, I probably found TYT on MSNBC. I do remember Bernie mentioning it. I was pulling for Bernie in 2016 when I was working. I always went on nights, working 6-7 days a week, not much time to do anything else, work, sleep, and repeat.
Hi, my name is Leah, and I support Cenk and the awesome team here at TYT. April Dawn said, I actually just searched progressive news, and TYT was one of the first results. So I tuned into the main show that day, and Anna, who will be the first of many times, said the exact words I was thinking. I knew I found a new home right then.
My name is Nick, and I work with the marketing and PR department here at TYT. Jedi from the TYT community said, the damage report at the beginning of the pandemic. In hindsight, it must have been YouTube algorithms. I never really looked up shows before. Mostly DIY, skill researching Star Wars, and online shopping. Once news hit in January last year, every day we weren't in lockdown or even acknowledging the problem grew concerning by the day. Considering I had never even heard of TYT before, even with all the YouTube I watch, I have never seen a single thumbnail before until I started searching for news about coronavirus. I watched for months, amazed by the amount of content and depth. Little did I know TDR is but the tip of the iceberg, and TYT was claiming me like I was the Titanic. I never used Facebook before. I created an account and posted one picture, and that was my profile since 2008. My agitation at Trump's administration trying to undermine the warnings of every credible medical professional in the world grew daily. I started using Facebook to vent my frustrations at the health risks. You can actually track my attention to politics with my Facebook posts. While I never used it before, I now use it as my activist journal, and I might have had something to say almost every day since the beginning of 2020. I don't know how effective it is, but I will say this, the number of likes I get does not reflect the number of people that actually read my posts. I won't say all my friends read them, but I was surprised to find out that people do read them. Which is surprising because most of my posts on Facebook are at least as long as this post, which I was not expecting in the TLDR, too long didn't read society we find ourselves in today. Is that progress? I guess.
All right, back on TYT. Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Ibn Asteris, Aaron Crate, and Kathy McNine. They all just joined by hitting the join button below on YouTube. On mobile, you got to scroll down a little bit further to see it. But you guys are amazing, and you make this our honest reporting possible. I'm going to read just one comment here. Zara Sarango says on Super Chat, just joined Wolfpack. I'm done with these progressives laying in bed with the corporate Democrats and Republicans. We need real people to stand up because obviously they don't have a backbone. Wolf-pack.com/join. This is the perfect time to join them. Get a real movement to get an amendment. We'll talk about more about that on another day. But if you don't get the money out, this is all hopeless. And unfortunately, your assessment of that is correct. All right, Anna.
So in the last hour, we were talking about how progressives have failed, and they're about to give up their leverage in voting for the bipartisan infrastructure bill without securing the passage of the reconciliation bill, even the pared down reconciliation bill. And someone wrote in and said that Representative Jimmy Gomez is kind of standing his ground and saying that he wants to ensure that both bills pass together. We've been looking for the statement that he made, and this is what we found on Twitter. He says, position hasn't changed. US progressives have been fighting to pass the entire Biden agenda, the Build Back Better Act and the infrastructure bill. They moved together. That was the entirety of his statement, and I just want to make sure that everyone has that context. Personally, I don't find that to be an incredibly strong statement.
But no,
we'll see.
It's not an quote unquote incredibly strong statement, but it is right now, as things stand, the single strongest statement made on the left.
That's pretty sad.
And by the way, we looked into it because I barely know Jimmy Gomez, even though he's from here. Why do I barely know him? He's largely an establishment Democrat. He had a progressive challenger, so maybe he's worried about a progressive challenger and he's acting this way, but I don't care. So right now, I've got him on the board as the strongest progressive in Congress. I haven't seen a single tweet from anybody else saying that they will dare disagree with Jayapal or Pelosi. So until I see that, congratulations, Jimmy Gomez. You're apparently the strongest progressive in the country.
Oh my God. Man, it's a sad day. All right, well, let's move on to our next story.
If you want to bring race into this, it's the Jews.
Well, that lovely lady is Melanie Rettler. And of course, I'm joking when I say lovely. She's awful and an anti-Semite. And she proceeded to go on this anti-Semitic rant during a school board meeting in Chandler, Arizona. I'd like to note first that she doesn't even have a child going to a school in that school district. However, she felt the need to attend the school board meeting and engage in the wildest conspiracy theories imaginable. Let's take a look at the first clip.
I'm a veterinarian. I was a former teacher in Phoenix Union High School District. I'm a cloning expert with 35 years experience. And I was a consultant to the CDC. I owned a pharmacy. I want to tell you that this vaccine, this COVID vaccine, is a deadly poison. That's it. I'm just going to tell you that. Everybody that takes it is damaging their immune system. And they're talking about this being given to children now. It's going to destroy them.
So she starts out with what unfortunately is commonplace during school board meetings these days, vaccine conspiracy theories, vaccine nonsense. It's already pretty bad, but she's about to become even more unhinged. Before we get to that video, Cenk, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, look, we're now used to lunatics saying things like, I'm a cloning expert. I've been a cloning expert for 35 years. Really, have you? And I can tell you that the science doesn't work. So 99% of the world's scientists are wrong, but you, veterinarian cloning expert, have got all the science figured out right, and you don't even want to bother explaining it because it's so obvious that every other scientist in the world is wrong, and you, rando anti-Semitic clown of the earth, is the one that's got it figured out. But yet, a giant portion of the country agrees with her and not the scientists.
Well, now she's about to explain how the vaccine is really just a conspiracy theory, a conspiracy by Jewish individuals. Let's watch.
If you want to talk about racism, if you want to bring it in, then let's bring it in. Let's get to the bottom of it. You're talking about white supremacy. Okay, let's get to the very bottom of it. Every one of these things, the deep state, the cabal, the swamp, the elite, you can't mention it, but I will. There is one race that owns all the pharmaceutical companies, and these vaccines aren't safe, they aren't effective, and they aren't free. You know that you're paying for it through the increase in gas prices, the increase in food prices. You're paying for this. And it's being taken from your money and given to these pharmaceutical companies. And if you want to bring race into this, it's the Jews. Oh, if you want to call me a hater, go ahead. Phil Campbell.
So not only does she go on this unhinged rant where she blames Jewish people for the vaccine and also price increases in gas and food, she gets a round of applause from people who attended this school board meeting in Chandler, Arizona. Wonderful, great. That's so good to see, Jake.
Yeah, well, look, it's only silver lining is I'm glad I saw the video because I heard the audio first, because you see about 3 people or so clapping. Most don't clap. So not everyone has lost their minds. Okay, but I'm going to tell you a very disturbing number about how high that percentage is in a second. First, look, when she started talking about, there's one race, and it's the pharmaceutical companies, et cetera. I'm kidding, but I thought, I knew where she was going to go, unfortunately. But there's this Turkish couple in Germany who runs a pharmaceutical company. They're the partners of Pfizer. They actually discovered the first vaccine. Right, so for coronavirus. And I was like, is it us? Is it the Turks that control everything? Oh, it's not us, okay? So it's absurd to think that all pharmaceutical companies are run by Jews. That's insane. Do I have to clarify that that's insane? Okay.
And by the way, even though you can go to your local CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and get the vaccine for free, don't be mistaken, you're actually paying for that vaccine through increased gas and food prices because the Jews. No, but like, I wanted to confirm that she's actually a veterinarian, and she is. And that blows my mind. Look, because like the crazy things that she believes, and I mean, she just spewed a bunch of like, buzzwords that you'll hear on right-wing media: deep state, cabal, elite, right? And she just like decided to connect random dots and immediately like end up with the conclusion that Jewish people are doing it.
Yeah, no, but guys, you saw us on this show say to you many times, you saw me in particular say it 1,000 times to you, when these unhinged right-wingers, if you don't have a camera on them and they trust you, every time they tell you what the real root of the problem is, the Jews. So, and you heard her say it. I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. What she's saying is what we're all thinking and what we're all talking about in private, I'm gonna say in public. It's not an accident that they're attacking synagogues. It's not an accident that in Charlottesville, they chanted, the Jews will not replace us. Even they didn't chant, the immigrants will not replace us, the Muslims will not, the blacks will not. They said the Jews will not replace us. Okay, so neither Anna or I are Jewish, but I'm telling you that these guys, at the root of all of these theories is always the Jews control the world. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene said it was a Jewish space laser that started forest fires. She didn't say it was a Muslim space laser, right? She didn't say it was a black space laser. She said it was a Jewish space laser. Because in their racist, bigoted heads, they think, the Jews have the money, so they must be the ones controlling things, right? And so now, this is super dangerous.
Yeah.
Out of control dangerous. So I'm gonna give 2 last stats here, okay?
I know, we've got 2 other videos to get to and we're not even halfway done with the story, but go ahead.
Okay, well that just made it longer. Okay, so in a poll, 1 out of 6 Americans said that they believe in QAnon conspiracy theories about satanic cults that drink the blood of children. By the way, the blood of children, it's blood libel. It's the oldest anti-Semitic trope. Where do you think they got it from? 1 out of 6 Americans. 2/3 of Republicans in the same poll said that this is, that if you're not Christian, you're less of an American. We're in a super dangerous territory. Go ahead, Ann.
All right, so what I thought was interesting about this story, aside from the fact that we have yet another lunatic spewing anti-Semitic garbage during a school board meeting where her kid doesn't even attend, by the way, was the reaction that you got from the school board member. So let's just watch this timid reaction.
Your comments really need to be related to what the school board can do something about. And this was not something that we can do something about. So please have your comments with something that is within our jurisdiction.
What was that? What was that? So here's a woman who just hijacked a school board meeting for a school district that her child does not attend, And that's the reaction you get from a school board member. How about you kick her ass out? How about you implement rules that indicate that if your child doesn't go to one of the schools within the school district, then you don't get to speak. Get out. Nothing that's happening within this school district has any impact on you or your children, so why are you here? Why are you here? Look, there's clearly an organized effort funded by right-wing donors to do what's happening in what you saw in that video. Not just in this school board, but throughout the country. We've already done stories on it, but I decided to dig a little deeper to figure out what's going on in this particular case. And guess what I found out? So Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, which by the way is funded by all sorts of right-wing donors, is going to that school district, by the way, Scottsdale School District. You have videos of Charlie Kirk attending the Scottsdale school board meeting, spewing his nonsense. Let me give you an example. Here's a video of Charlie Kirk.
Kind of feels like I'm living in San Francisco because of all of you and your self-righteous measures that you're putting to abuse the children of this wonderful state. I'm gonna have children here one day, and I sure hope people like you aren't in charge. In closing, I'm gonna say this: your time is soon up. The people of this state and this school district are rising up. There are recall measures in place. You have awoke a sleeping giant. I hope you enjoy your masked short-term future here while it still lasts.
So Charlie Kirk doesn't even have kids, but he's attending the Scottsdale, Arizona school board meeting. Why? Charlie Kirk, founder and chief executive officer of Scottsdale-based Turning Point USA, has shown up during the public speaker session of school board meetings in Chandler and Scottsdale. TPUSA has set up a school board watch list that flags what it labels the most radical districts in the country. And what does that lead to? What is their whole objective? To get members of the school board to be so terrified for their own lives that they decide to step down. And to be sure, it's already worked. Lindsey, the only African American on the 5-member Chandler board, says the attacks on school boards are organized. She says that she's not going to serve. She's gonna step down. And she says, I need to take care of myself and my family at this point. She cited death threats, people following me into restaurants and taking pictures of my back and sending them to me.
Do you understand what the back pictures are about? In other words, we could just shoot you in the back of the head and you'll never even know it.
We're following you.
We're following you, we're watching you. We can kill you or hurt you or harm you or your family at any time. This is what brown shirts do. This is what the Klan did. This is what terrorists do. So look, I'm sure they're well-meaning board members, but that lady's response was incredibly weak. But to be fair to her, you got people intimidating them 24/7. So, but the correct response to that, to the first lady is, listen, you lunatic, we're not gonna have any of that anti-Semitic nonsense here. No, the Jews do not control our school board. And you have no kids here, you're dismissed, you're gone, and you're banned. Police never allow her in this room again unless she has kids in this school system. And that's an easy rule. Charlie Kirk says, I'm not taking his speech rights, but he says one day I'm gonna have kids here. Great. When you do, come back to the school board. You'll be perfectly welcome, even with the insane stuff that you say, even with the horrible attempts to intimidate us, you'll be welcome back, okay? But until then, please remove him from the building. Oh, freedom of speech. No, dude, you can do freedom of speech right outside the building. You could do it on the sidewalk. You could do it at your studio. Billionaires give you millions of dollars to do free speech. You can do it anywhere you like, but you don't have kids in the school system. So kindly leave the goddamn building and leave your stupid, insane conspiracy theories behind. Guys, once we start saying, hey, there's nothing we can do, it's not our jurisdiction to control the Jewish space lasers, now we're having a debate. Is it the Jews or is it not the Jews? It's not a debate, it's not a debate. So we're in terrible, horrible times. 30% of Republicans say it's time for violence. And so things are gonna get way worse now. That's just reality. I'm a hopeful guy. I always give you guys hopeful messages. Here, watch out. The right wing is going to do tremendous violence.
All right, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about what Lindsey Graham was saying behind the scenes as the Capitol riots were taking place. And later in the rundown, we'll talk about the super dorky phrase, "Let's go Brandon," and what's behind it. Come right back.
Back on TYT social break here. J-Man and Litany Panda just joined by hitting the join button below on YouTube. Everybody else, tyt.com/join. You see it on the screen all the time because it makes all the difference in the world. We can't do the show. We can't bring you this news without you guys. We can't try to bring change without you guys. So thank you to everybody who participates. Ed wrote in on Super Chat, "I just called 3 progressives in the House of Representatives and said follow Jimmy Gomez and block the bipartisan bill. I called Gomez and said we have your back making this decision." Ed, that is the correct way to put on political pressure. Thank you for caring enough to do it, and thank you for doing it the right way. Susan Consonetti, thank you for the Super Chat contribution, we appreciate it. R. Stone said, "Is it possible to have a TYT town hall with any of the current progressive reps to help progressive audience understand their actions? They at least owe us that much." If I'm being honest with you, no, that is not possible. If we ask them now to come on and explain why they're voting with the corporate Democrats, 0 of them will agree. Not 1 will agree to do that. And that's unfortunately telling. They've lost connection to progressive media completely. They're surrounded in a bubble filled with corporate media. They pretty much only go on corporate media. You saw Ilhan Omar the other day here, and we give credit where credit is due. I'm glad she came on, she made some good points. If we asked her back on today, she would say no. So I'm being honest with you guys. If we asked O'Connor, he would very likely say no. If we asked Bernie Sanders, he would definitely say no. Because it's easy when we agree, but when it comes to answering tough questions about your votes, they're gone. They don't want any piece of it, okay? So I'm being honest with you. If they could prove me wrong. And by the way, how do I know that? We asked them on when there are actual issues, not just for like access, but hey, you guys are voting on this or that. Do you want to come on and talk about it? They're like, oh, hell no. Okay, so that's reality. That's reality. They could prove me wrong. They can come on right now. They're not going to. And if they're going on a show, they think it's safe. Okay. Lady Sparkle says, if Republicans really wanted to return the good old days, the corporate tax rate was 50% during the Eisenhower presidency. That's true. The marginal top tax rate for the wealthy was 91%, okay? Christine says, Cenk, watching you and Anna is life-giving, thank you. By the way, let me be more fair to the progressives. We will have our booker reach out to each one of them and ask them to come on tomorrow. And you'll see whether they come on or not, right? You think we're not gonna give them a fair hearing? You know we're gonna give them a fair hearing. We're gonna discuss what they're doing and why they're doing it. Everybody knows that, they know that. And then you can judge for yourself tomorrow when you see none of them on. Malcolm Stazer says, geez, TYT predictions are proven right even more often than conspiracy theories are proven wrong. Yes, I wish we weren't that right, but unfortunately we are. All right, back on TYT. Anna was just telling me during the break, even CNN is reporting that progressives have caved to Manchin. That's true. I actually give credit to CNN for reporting it that way. That is accurate. All right, what's next.
All right. Senator Lindsey Graham scolded law enforcement for not immediately shooting Capitol rioters. And that's according to new reporting by the Washington Post on the events that transpired that day. They write that the Senate and House leaders also had been evacuated by Capitol Police and taken to an undisclosed location, but many lawmakers remained in their chambers for a few minutes before they were led to safety in the Hart Senate office building. Now here's the relevant part. Senator Lindsey Graham was irate that senators were forced to flee their own chamber. He yelled at the Senate Sergeant at Arms, "What are you doing? Take back the Senate. You've got guns, use them." The South Carolina senator was adamant. "We give you guns for a reason," he repeated, "use them." So he wanted the authorities to use their weapons immediately as soon as the Capitol was breached by these Trump supporters who in their minds were going to reverse the results of the 2020 general election. Now, Graham's comment was recounted by the Washington Post. A Republican senator spoke to the Washington Post and told the reporters about what he had heard from Senator Lindsey Graham on that day. Now, despite claims from Republican politicians that the riots were no more than just a tourist visit, Graham was in fact clearly concerned. So Graham, the South Carolina senator who was one of Trump's closest friends in Congress, called Ivanka Trump repeatedly with suggestions for what the president should say. "You need to get these people out of here," he told the president's daughter. "This thing is going south. This is not good. You're going to have to tell these people to stand down, stand down." So he was absolutely panicking. And there was some backlash when he later publicly on cable news had some negative words for Donald Trump. And we'll get to his backpedal on that in just a minute. But Cenk, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so look, it's not fair to call Lindsey Graham a complete coward because it was a really scary situation. A lot of people were really scared. And that's why one of the officers eventually did use their gun. And they were chanting about executing people. They chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," who's a Republican. They talked about going to murder Nancy Pelosi. And so Lindsey Graham was not wrong in that moment to even to panic. There are moments to panic. And when somebody's coming to murder you, that's a good time for it. And he's not wrong to say, "Hey, police, this is why you have a gun," right? But for him to now turn around and pretend that it was no big deal, no. As usual, you're a sniveling liar, Lindsey Graham.
So he's a little different from the Gosars of the world, right? Like you'll have Paul Gosar, who very well might have actually conspired with the rioters. That's part of the investigation that's currently taking place. And of course, he's minimized what happened that day. However, Lindsey Graham has kind of changed his rhetoric from being critical toward Donald Trump and his incitements to now just mainly focusing his ire toward Capitol Police and their refusal to resort to extreme measures, right, to get the situation under control. Now, immediately after the riots took place, he said, "Trump and we've had a hell of a journey. I hate being this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president, but today all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough." Now he said that on the day of, as soon as lawmakers were back in session to finally, what do you call it? Certify the election. In February, Graham expressed his anger with Capitol Police. He said, "I got mad. I mean, these police officers had every right to use deadly force. They should have used it. The people in charge of securing the Capitol let the country down."
And remember, if he denies any of the new quotes coming out, that's on the record.
Right, and as usual, he did immediately backpedal following backlash from Republican voters. In an interview with Sean Hannity, he praised Trump and openly admitted that Republicans who go against him would be erased. So let's take a quick look at that video.
What I said on your show got people all riled up, but it's just common sense. The most popular Republican in America, it's not Lindsey Graham, it's not Liz Cheney, it's Donald Trump. People on our side of the aisle believe that Trump policies worked. They're disappointed that he lost. And to try to erase Donald Trump from the Republican Party, is insane. And the people who try to erase him are going to wind up getting erased.
And I think he really did tell on himself there, right? Because, in a moment of panic, I think justified panic as a result of the violence that took place that day, he was honest about his feelings toward Donald Trump. And he says enough is enough. But he's always tried to do this balancing act where, he wants to kind of avoid things from really falling apart, but he also wants to be this Trump loyalist because he thinks he benefits politically from doing so.
Yeah, I mean, he's a standard politician. He's a great example of a politician. He's a great example of why we despise politicians as a country. They usually in the polling get somewhere between 7 to 13%. They peak at 13%. So an overwhelming majority of the country absolutely hates politicians. The only people who don't hate them are people in media who tell you that they're honorable people, that are swell, great people, that are having honest policy debates. Okay, so in this case, now of course the sniveling coward is back to sniveling for Trump. And talking about how if you don't agree with him, you'll be erased. Well, you almost experienced that personally, Lindsey, didn't you? Where you were literally afraid for your life. That's why you were screaming at the cops, use the gun, kill Trump supporters because they're about to kill us and erase us. And now you turn around and go, well, I'm not in mortal danger anymore, but the rest of the country is, but I don't care about them. I'm going back to my corruption, my greed, my sniveling, etc. So understand what these politicians are about. And if the rest of the media is telling you, oh no, Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, and by the way, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are wonderful people, and all the hundreds of millions of dollars they've taken never influences them, and they have consistent positions. They're having a debate. They're all, what do they think about policy? They don't care about policy at all. They just care about raw power. So he was wetting his pants during January 6th, and now he's recovered and he's bought new pants with campaign donor money. And so now he's back to kissing Donald Trump's ass until the next time they try to murder him and his colleagues.
Well, speaking of political violence, we've got a giant story about that when we come back from the break. Don't miss it, we'll be right back.
All right, guys, so I'm gonna tell you one quick thing here. We've got a new thing called Super Thanks. It's more, it's ironically, if you're watching this live, it's not for you, it's for when you're watching the videos, okay? So Super Chat lets me see your comments and then read some of them while we're live. Super Thanks is on the videos afterwards, okay? But if you are watching videos afterwards and you really like what we're saying in the video, if you show it in Super Thanks, it has two upsides. One is that, yes, we get the revenue for it. It allows us to progressive programming. But secondly, it also shows us what you care more about. And so people, liking something is really important. Sharing something is really important. But when you actually put money in, it gives you a sense of how passionate you are about that. It's not at all a perfect measure, guys. And if you can't afford anything, don't ever worry about it. Do whatever you can in terms of sharing the progressive message. But it's a way for us to go, oh wow, that video is what progressives care about, right? So anyways, that's a good new thing that YouTube has and I'm happy for it. And I'll just deliver the Pocky Chip Challenge news to you guys. We didn't make it, so I didn't have to eat the Pocky Chip. So now you know. Bart is clapping. All right, Vicky Martinez just joined on YouTube. We really appreciate it. She hit the join button below. Ice cream and cake wrote in the member section. I can't help but wonder why no one is discussing what happens to the reconciliation bill when the Dems lose the House and Senate in 2022. Even this gutted bill will never happen. The Republicans will kill it dead and the progressives will have caved for absolutely nothing. Absolutely pathetic. So yes, if the Republicans win, that'll happen. But honestly, there's an excellent chance that'll happen even if the Democrats win.
Yep.
Because they are, on these issues, corporate economic issues, they agree with the Republicans. It's all a shell game. A Bucket Full of Dragons says, I can't imagine what Cenk and Anna are going through right now. They've been spearheading progressivism, and to see this, they are a sharp spear in a weak hand. Look, first let's always clarify that it's a political analogy. We all know that, but mainstream media loves to lie. So when Anna was joking about the anti-Semitic woman before, she had to clarify that it was a joke. Otherwise, the New York Times would write it as if it wasn't a joke.
That's right.
And so, anyways, the more important part is like, guys, we give them, whatever tool they need to fight. And so far, 9 out of 10 times, if it hasn't been 10 out of 10 times, they take the tool and they throw it down. They don't just like, oh, we could barely use it. They're like, no, Nancy Pelosi and Jake Tapper will yell at me. So of course I'm not gonna listen to progressive media or progressive voters or the progressive base. They think we're joking with it. I don't know what they think. I guess they think, oh, no, the Young Turks don't represent the progressive base. We know better. We'll find out, won't we? Unfortunately, we've been right about everything so far. And when they find out, by the way, how angry the progressive base is, you know what they're gonna do? Instead of adjusting, they're gonna get mad at us. Oh, the messenger told us. TYT told us they must be the ones at fault, right? No, it's your voting record that's at fault. Chaplain Fred said, Cenk, I don't have time for this, but thank you, Chaplain Fred. Bushido leader also joined Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com/join. Get in the fight that way, fight the corruption. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Just want to shout out to all of our wonderful Twitch supporters. I didn't get the chance to read a lot of your comments today, but Blue Tech the Belgian Dragon gave the 10 subs and we appreciate it. And I'll just read one here because it's so nice. Moore Fallon wrote in, the best progressive news network in the world, and they've been with us for 17 months. Thank you guys. Anna.
All right, well, let's talk about political violence because that continues to happen in the country with absolutely no consequences. So, just ahead of vaccine mandates in New York, hundreds gathered for a protest in Staten Island where the governor was set to take the stage and give a speech. In fact, there was one specific anti-vaxxer who felt the need to speak about burning down schools over the vaccine mandate. Let's watch.
If they're going to push this on the kids without any type of balance on our end that we're comfortable with, I can guarantee you one thing: town halls and schools will be burned to the ground. In 1776, nobody went to court. Nobody went to court. Everyone grabbed a gun and they shot at each other. And again, I do not condone violence. I hope we don't get there. But just understand that there are plenty of people that are ready to go there.
I love the anti-socialism flag there, as this protest is about vaccine mandates for public municipal workers in New York City. Okay, but the point isn't lost on me. Clearly what they're calling for there is taking up arms against lawmakers over vaccine mandates, over policies that they disagree with. Because in 1776, they didn't have any civil debate or policy making. They just grabbed their guns and they took matters into their own hands. Cenk, those were the good old days.
After he calls for violence over and over and talks about grabbing your guns and doing something, he then says, oh, I don't condone violence. Yeah. Well, really? You got a funny way of showing it. And when you were talking about grabbing your guns, everybody was applauding. And it's not like, look, you walk into a crowd, if you walked into a left-wing crowd and said, hey, let's go grab our guns and start shooting people, people wouldn't applaud. They say, what are you, nuts? Get this guy off the stage, get the megaphone away from him, right? In a right-wing audience, they're like, yes, you saw it with your own eyes. You saw what he said, you saw the reaction. But now, look guys, you see that stuff from time to time and you get a sense from the mainstream media that they're outliers. It's tiny little things, it's not a big deal. That's not remotely true. That's the tip of the iceberg. The numbers, the polling indicates the iceberg.
So there was a new poll done. This is a new poll by Public Religion Research Institute, and they found a pretty devastating trend. In fact, it reinforces previous polls that were done by other organizations that we've shared with you in the past. Now, in this case, you see similar numbers. The poll found that 30% of Republicans agree that violence might be warranted, compared with 17% of independents and 11% of Democrats. Those who buy into the farthest right-wing media outlets are even more likely to contemplate violence. Among those people, 40% agree. Here are other disturbing findings from the poll. The poll also found that 31% believe the 2020 election was stolen from Trump, including 2/3 of Republicans and a whopping 82% of those who trust Fox News more than any other media outlet. Among those who trust far-right outlets like One America News Network and Newsmax, 97% say they believe the election was stolen. And really, the results of this poll reinforces something that I think most of us have known. It's an argument I've made on this show. Oftentimes when we have this debate about like, oh, is the right wing stupid? It's not about stupid or not stupid. It's about what bubble they exist in. And if they're in this right-wing media bubble where they're being told incessantly that the election was stolen from Donald Trump, of course they're gonna believe that. They exist in that bubble, right? They're literally conditioned and programmed to think that way. And when you genuinely think that democracy has been ripped away from you, that the election was stolen from your preferred candidate, well, of course you're gonna wanna take action. And unfortunately, when it comes to the right wing and their obsession with violence and guns, they're gonna take matters that just happen to be more violent. That's what's terrifying about this whole scenario.
Yeah, so I can't help but use some derogatory terms from time to time. As if you watch, you'll definitely know. But Anna's right. It's less about being less intelligent or insane. They're literally being brainwashed into believing things that are not true. Oh, climate change isn't true. 99% of the scientists are wrong. Oh, the vaccine isn't effective. 99% of the world's scientists are wrong. And oh, Joe Biden didn't win the election. 99% of journalists are wrong. No, we're the right ones. And we're telling you right now, ignore the scientists, ignore the teachers and the professors and the journalists, ignore anyone with facts and just listen to us. And it totally and utterly worked. Now we've got basically a family member or several family members who are in a cult in this country. And if you've ever had a family member in a cult, I'm lucky I have not. But from what I see, hear, and read, it is incredibly difficult to get them out. And so 97% of Newsmax and OAN supporters think that the election was genuinely stolen. If I thought the election was, and I've said this before many times, if I thought the election was actually stolen by Trump, which is not, he tried to steal it, right? If I thought that worked, I wouldn't resort to violence and I wouldn't tell anybody to resort to violence, but I would fight by every other means. And I would fight with my dying breath to return to democracy. And so that brainwashing has had a massive impact. And in fact, we have one more set of facts for you guys from this poll that I would argue is even more devastating.
About QAnon, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's get to those results. 1 in 5 Americans believe in the core, oh my God. 1 in 5 Americans believe in the core tenet of the QAnon conspiracy that there is a storm coming soon. While 1 in 6 believe that the United States government is controlled by a group of Satan-worshiping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking ring. The same share, 18%, say they agree with the statement that America has gotten so far off track that true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save our country.
Guys, forget the first stat about 1 in 5 think there's a storm coming soon. I don't know what that means. That could mean a lot of different things. But 1 in 6 Americans said, 1 in 6 said yes, the Democrats are Satanists, literal Satanists. They're in a satanic cult and they're sexually abusing children. And by the way, part of that conspiracy is drinking the blood of children. 1 in 6 Americans, nearly a third of the Republican Party. This country is in massive trouble. Like the people in media, as usual, they're in the Capitol, also in politics. They're rearranging the chairs on the Titanic when the country is bubbling up towards violence and hatred, and there's a giant clash coming. And now progressives have lost in Congress completely, it appears today. So they're gonna be super mad. And now you got the right wing that's already saying, let's go grab our guns. 30% of them say resort to violence in the earlier portion of the poll. And a gigantic percentage of them believe that we on the left are controlled by Satan. So look, for me, as a rational person, that sounds like someone who's insane and should seek mental health counseling. Like literally, very, very, very literally, right? Okay, you say that's not productive, and the most accurate thing is that they have been brainwashed. But look, guys, who brainwashed them? It wasn't just Fox News and OAN and Newsmax. Republicans have been saying forever that Democrats are child killers, baby killers, right? That was abortion. I write about that in my book, justicecomingbook.com, okay? They've been saying it for decades, and Democrats never fought back. The media never clarified, no, Democrats don't kill babies. And they've told a lot of parts of fundamentalist Christianity said the other religions were Satanists. And so now another part of the poll, last one, 2/3 of Republicans say that being a Christian is an important part of being an American. So if you're not a Christian, you're not as American. By the way, Judeo-Christian, out the window. They didn't say anything about Jews. In fact, as we showed you earlier,
they don't care about Jews. Are you kidding me? They hate Jewish people.
Of course, the core of the QAnon conspiracy about drinking the blood of children is blood libel that has been used against Jews for centuries, if not millennia. It's the oldest anti-Semitic trope. Who do you think they're referring to? Why do you think they're attacking synagogues? This country's about to blow up. So I hope to God I'm wrong, and this is all just political rhetoric, and they're just doing free speech. If that's the case, a couple of years from now, we'll be like, oh my God, I was totally wrong. The right wing never did the violence, thank God. Oh, that's wonderful, right? But that's not what's gonna happen. They're whistling past the graveyard here. We're gonna hit that iceberg super hard. My guess is, based on all the polling and all the things you see in the streets, massive right wing violence is headed in our direction. It's straight ahead, and we're living in a fantasy world where we think, no, they won't really do it. Yes, they will. Did you see January 6th? Did you see the guy who showed up with a truck bomb in the Capitol? And then today, Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert are joking around about blowing up the Capitol. A guy with a truck bomb drove up to the Capitol to blow it up. And they're still joking about it. They're gonna do it. So I hope to God I'm wrong. All right.
All right, so on one hand, they're threatening serious political violence. On the other hand, they're using incredibly dorky phrases like the one that you're about to hear. So, Southwest Airlines has launched an internal investigation into a pilot who uttered the dorky phrase, let's go Biden. Sorry, Brandon, let's go Brandon. And it's just a way of saying F Joe Biden without dropping the F-bomb, because when you wanna be a baddie, you also want to make sure you don't upset mommy by saying bad words that might, offend her. Now, the phrase "Let's go, Brandon," which is understood to be code for swearing at President Biden. Just say it. If you're gonna say it, just say it. But anyway, the phrase "Let's go, Brandon," which is understood to be code for swearing at President Biden, was uttered over the intercom by a Southwest pilot during a flight on Friday. An AP reporter, Colleen Long, who was on that flight, added that it prompted audible gasps from some passengers. Now, Southwest Airlines has apologized for this. They said that they're investigating the whole situation. They also say that Southwest does not condone employees sharing their personal political opinions while on the job. And the airline would not say if the pilot had been suspended for making the remark, adding that it does not comment on an employee's status. The "Let's go Brandon" phrase apparently goes back to some NASCAR incident. The viral moment began in early October at NASCAR at a NASCAR race in Alabama that was broadcasted on NBC. As a crowd appeared to be cheering on the driver Brandon Brown, an NBC reporter interviewing Brown suggested that people were chanting, "Let's go Brandon," but it became clear that they were actually saying a 4-letter expletive and then Joe Biden. Okay, so that's where it comes from. And I have 2 thoughts. Number one, F Joe Biden does not offend me. I don't care, okay? I don't care at all. In fact, if you're gonna say it, just say it. I think the dorky like, "Let's go Brandon" thing is embarrassing. And like, I personally, if I were a right winger, I wouldn't utter that phrase because of how embarrassing it is. But secondly, look, just let people get from point A to point B without making it political. Flying is annoying as hell as it is. If the pilot said F Trump, I would be equally annoyed. Can we just have like one slice of life that isn't overly politicized with nonsense? We can't. You can't go anywhere or do anything without politics like slapping you in the face at all times. It's annoying. And I think this is different from athletes voicing their political opinion. This is a pilot. You're a pilot. Just shut up and do your job. You're supposed to get people safely to their destination. You want to be a political commentator? Then quit and be a political commentator.
Yeah, as a person who tries to sleep on planes, pilots over talking is already a pet peeve of mine. On your left side are clouds, and so are the same thing on the right-hand side. I know, dude, I'm trying to get some sleep, please. All right, and I agree with Anna. If they said F Trump, I'm like, I would think like, what are you trying to get all of us to fight? Because some people are gonna have a reaction to that, and then I'm gonna have a reaction to their reaction, and you're gonna cause a mess. And the reason why pilots in particular are a bad idea is you've got a captive audience. They can't leave the plane, right? Yep. And second of all, you're on a plane. That's a bad time to start fights.
At a time when you already have all these incidents of people assaulting flight attendants. I mean, there's a news story every other day about that. So why would a pilot needlessly engage in that kind of political rhetoric knowing that people are like on flights looking to fight?
Yeah, because they're conservatives and they can't help themselves and they think they're entitled to do everything they want to us and that there's gonna be no repercussions.
It's just so stupid.
Okay, like in this case, by the way, the conservatives, you think you're so bold. I get it, I know why you get such a kick out of it because you're not saying it, but you are saying it. And it triggers the elites. So everybody in Washington thinks it's like the most offensive thing they've ever heard. That is the beloved Joe Biden. He's powerful, we all have to kiss his ass. We progressives don't care at all. So F Donald Trump. By the way, I've said that, not even in those kind of harsh words, in open debate, and I've had right-wingers lose their minds. I mean, you wanna see apes crawling up a wall, they're like, you can't say that about Trump. Why? Why can't I say it about Trump? What happened to free speech? Because they're so triggered.
Yeah.
And all right, we got a poll on this and I want to say one more thing.
Right, so go to tyt.com/polls because we're curious what you think. The question is, should the Southwest pilot who used the phrase "Let's go Brandon" be on a flight be fired? Okay, so we want to know if you think he should be fired, yes or no. Go to tyt.com/polls to answer.
Yeah, I don't even know if he should be fired. That's why I'm curious what you guys are gonna say. I don't know how I'm gonna vote in that poll, but I do know this, if I was on that flight, I wouldn't make a scene at that point. But what I would do is if I got a chance to see the pilot as I was leaving, I'd say, go F yourself. And I'd say it really pleasantly. And if he was surprised or like, how could you? I'd be like, what do you mean? You just said F Joe Biden, so you don't mind saying things like that, right? You said it with a smile, I said it with a smile. Go F yourself and do it really hard. Try to figure out how to like hurt yourself while doing it, okay? Hey, we're all having fun, right? We're just having fun. But the reason I would do that is because I know right-wingers. They don't believe in justice. They don't believe in equality. They don't believe in anything, right? Fairness, they think fairness is a joke, right? So they think I can say anything I want to you, but you're never allowed to say it back to me. Well, I disagree, okay? But the problem is, as Anna pointed out in the beginning, once we start going down this road, we're all fighting. And we're all fighting nonstop.
I just want to get on the flight and get to my destination without it being more annoying than it already is. Like flying in particular is the most annoying thing that you have to do, right? So like, can we just find ways to make it smoother and not needlessly inject like divisive rhetoric where it doesn't need to exist. That's all I'm saying. Other than that, you can say F Biden all you want, don't care at all.
In the bonus episode, we're gonna get to a conservative talking about sodomy. So you know that's gonna be really brilliant work on their part.
Oh yeah, the butt sex guy.
Yeah, so that's gonna be great. And then other fun things as well. God knows what kind of rage we might have. Anyway, tyt.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. Thank you guys to everybody who cares about issues, and we will see the members in a minute. Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories. Gee, I wonder why we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Because they're all raising money from the guys who don't want to increase the minimum wage.
And we play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention.